Thank you, sir. Senator Wolk.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, I ask you to support AB 115. And as the drought continues, we will have more of these debates and with greater intensity. There are four underlying, I would say, policies or principles that underlie this bill. First, there are whole communities who do not have access to safe drinking water. Secondly, we must all conserve, all of us. 3, we must measure what we use, all of us. And 4, we must expedite good projects that stretch the supply of our water. 115 provides new authority for the Water Board as a last resort with respect to these water systems to consolidate to provide safe drinking water to 1 million Californians who currently have none. This consolidation is critical to getting water to those communities. There is liability for the receiving entity, there is liability protection, there is Proposition 1 funding to pay the cost of the pipes and the connections. There is cost for the process. And most important, who are we talking about? The Water Board is going only as a last resort in places where an entity had the water system has consistently failed to provide adequate drinking water. All reasonable efforts to negotiate consolidation or extension of service were made, and consolidation is appropriate and technically and economically feasible. This is a last resort. 115 also allows that local water agencies will have the authority, the local water agencies, to enforce water conservation orders that we have and we are living under. That is a question of fairness. It doesn't help to have a standard that anyone can flagrantly ignore. I hope they won't be police. I don't believe they'll be police. I think the way you work these things out at the local level, we all know. And the first is to discuss and have negotiation. But there must be some enforcement authority. We require those who have water rights to report their diversions. And I say that coming from the Delta. It is important to do that. We must measure what we use. These are not new tools to local government at all. But what is new is the urgency in moving forward in the drought. We need to recognize that. And I would ask my colleagues at LAFCO and the special districts and the counties who have the authority, quite a bit of authority in the water area, that sometimes they have not used and should be willing to use when we have this extraordinary drought in front of us. It's time to move this process forward. And I think this is a very, very important bill. I agree with my colleague that better process would help this because, after all, it is the counties and the local governments which will have to support this. And it's better that we move forward with carrots rather than sticks. And process is important in getting our partners to work with the state in making these very serious and essential changes happen quickly. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. And just to clarify, Senator Wolk, while it's the companion bill, a couple of times you referred to a different bill number, but we are debating SB 88.
We are indeed, and yesterday it was AB 115.
Exactly. I didn't want anybody to be confused.
My words.
They apply. It's the same language.
SB 88.
Yes. Thank you very much. With that clarification, Senator Morlott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, at least those of us that are not eating lunch that are in the room, thank you for being here at the noon hour. I stand as a victim of a middle-of-the-night budget trailer bill and its abuse with Senate Bill 89, which cost Orange County, a donor county, more than $50 million per year, taking away its own funds. So I'm a little agitated by this strategy of using a trailer bill to implement policy. Since we're talking water, one of my favorite quotes from Mark Twain is that whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting. And so I am in a fighting mood a little bit over what I think is a major policy change, and it has no business being in the budget process. We should have a proper fight in the proper place. Making major changes to water rights laws and its surrounding policy should not be jammed down our throats at the last minute by our governor. The people of California deserve better. This is a cram down, and it's flawed. Wording like appropriate and technically and economically feasible, I'd call that gobbledygook. To quote a colleague, this is not ruled by fiat. This is not a monarchy. This is a co-equal branch of government. What we do is we collaborate, we cooperate with the executive branch. This is not a monarchy, but we're getting something just pushed down our throats. Everyone is opposed to this in the middle of the night proposal. Look at all the organizations that line up in opposition. Again, colleagues, this is not a budget trailer bill. It's policy, and we need to stop this kind of abuse. I strongly oppose SB 88/AB 115. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. Senator Gaines had his mic up first. Senator Gaines.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Madam President and members. I just want to make a clarification. I rise in opposition to SB 88. And I find it very interesting in taking a look at the aspects within it with regards to groundwater well permits, CEQA exemption for local groundwater ordinances, also recycled water pipeline and groundwater replenishment, CEQA exemption, building code provisions regarding plumbing for recycled water, another CEQA exemption. And yet, as was brought up earlier by my colleague from Hanford, what's happening with water storage? What's happening with Sites Reservoir? What's happening with Temperance Flat? And why aren't we including this within this bill, at least an expedited CEQA, to rush the process forward so that we can provide an adequate water supply? And in these debates that we have about climate change, if in fact the climate is changing and the nature of our water supply is changing from snow to water, why wouldn't we be moving forward with these projects as fast as we could in a process that would still allow the environmental debate to continue? And for these reasons, I urge a no vote.
Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam President. SB 88 is just plain bad government. And you think that government would learn by their lessons of the past. Many of us witnessed during the passage of the Affordable Health Care Act when the former Majority Leader Nancy Pelosi was asked, "Did you read the bill?" And she said, "No, I didn't read the bill." "Well, how do you know what's in it?" She goes, "Well, we'll learn what's in it after we pass it." My friends, at the Budget Committee, it's always been a goal that we receive bills in print 72 hours before the hearing so that we can have an opportunity to study them. I think it's only appropriate. We received this bill 72 minutes before our hearing. My friends, that is a mockery of democracy. And I've heard the embellishments of the magnitude of the present-day drought consequences. Yes, we're in a problematic time, but I'm going to tell you that the consolidation that is being proposed today is not going to quickly solve our drought issues. This is nothing more, my friends, than a state coup on local water districts and an assault on the local elected officials that many of us know in our respective communities that know better about water conveyance and water quality than all of us in our brain power put together. What this consolidation is going to do is going to create intense litigation. One thing that I've learned in 22 years of being a local elected official is that water districts don't get along too well. They compete with one another. You will see intense litigation between the water company wanting to sue another and vice versa, and including litigation against the state. We are completely abandoning the process of LAFCO. And we, again, as a state, as a police state, are imposing our will on local government the way we did with AB 109. We are going to see significant Prop 218 issues, and we are going to be trampling on water rights, some of which are over a century old, and private property rights. I heard my wonderful colleague from Sonoma say that we are going to continue discussing and negotiating. But my friends, this should be done before we pass this trailer bill, not after. This was done in the absence of 38 million people. Water district members woke up yesterday not knowing that we could be stripping them of being elected officials with their respective water districts and forcing them to combine with other water districts. There's been no public input. In a true democracy, we represent 38 million people that have a right, that have a voice, that deserve the attention, that we deserve to hear their concerns. I can tell you there'll be hundreds of water districts, if we set this for hearing, that would come up and articulate impacts, unintended consequences that we see year after year from bills that are passed that we will never learn about until we see the lawsuits. My colleague mentioned that Mark Twain once said, "Whiskey is for drinking, but water is for fighting for." I will guarantee you that these water districts are going to be putting up a fight. We are basically taking a broom and hitting a beehive that will create horrific, bureaucratic, and legal chaos in a state when we need the cooperation of all these water agencies to help cope with the drought. It's the best apparatus, it's the best infrastructure we have in place today. We still don't have AB 109 down yet. And here we're going to tear out this apparatus at a time when we need these worthy elected officials, these worthy water agencies working collectively, cooperatively with the state of California. But our will is to tear them apart, to pit one water company against another, to waste horrific, scarce water resources on lawyers, and the state has conveniently, within this legislation, exempted them from the unfunded mandates and legal costs, legal litigation costs, ramifications that are surely going to come. This is bad government. We can't condone it. We should be having a more open process. And this is a sincere abuse of power by using a trailer bill to circumvent hearing our citizens and circumventing the will of our constituents. I strongly hope that we vote no. I urge my colleagues to vote no on SB 88.
Senator Vidak.
Madam President, colleagues, I rise in opposition to SB 88. I've heard a lot of members refer to communities that are disadvantaged, many like East Porterville, which is a part of my district. For those of you who are unfamiliar with East Porterville, it's a disadvantaged, unincorporated community whose residents' domestic wells have been failing since August 2014. Assistance has been graciously provided by private businesses, nonprofits, and nearby local governments to install temporary water tanks to provide water in homes, bottled water for drinking, and portable showers. This bill is masquerading as a solution to the problems of East Porterville and communities like it. But in reality, it will do very little to help these residents. This bill forces consolidation of water agencies without a vote of the existing boards or the people who live in these areas. A forced consolidation may not take into consideration the amount of water available for customers of the existing water system and may exacerbate drought conditions to other communities. Additionally, this bill states that the Water Board will use existing financial assistance guidelines and policies to provide financial assistance to water agencies facing this forced consolidation. The irony here is, if we're going to require the board to use existing financial assistance guidelines, why has the Water Board not already provided assistance to the residents of East Porterville and others to solve this problem? Let's call this bill just what it is. It's a guarantee that the Water Board will come into a local community and unilaterally impose a water district consolidation from Sacramento with no guarantee of financial assistance. This is simply a huge unfunded mandate whose costs will be borne to those who can least afford it. I ask for a no vote.
Thank you. Senator Bates.
Thank you, Madam President. Knowing that our time is short, I will be brief, but I have to share with you my dismay this morning when I awakened and read this bill. We are creating, through this bill, a new sheriff in town, and we're asking our local water boards to engage in that behavior. They have been our partners, both in our communities and certainly with our state agencies, in providing incentives to our communities and those residents to address this very serious crisis. There have been incentives to buy new appliances that are low water usage. There have been opportunities for landscaping forums around town, how to use cisterns, and also assistance in planting, replanting their lawns and their estates in my district with drought-tolerant plants. Look at Shady Canyon, which actually my colleague from Orange County has that community, and they are overwhelmingly supportive through drought-tolerant landscaping. So to put the onerous responsibility on our water boards in our communities to become the imposer of penalties rather than innovative incentives, that will not change behavior. It will create more animosity in our communities towards our government. We want our people to be working with us to address this crisis, not seeing us as the enemy as we impose onerous situations on them that affect their quality of life. They are with us in this issue in our state. Let's keep them with us and not provide the opportunity to impose onerous penalties and create water boards as the new sheriff in town. I urge a no vote.
Thank you. Senator Fuller.
Because it's short of time, I'm going to only give one example of why I'm opposed to this bill. But basically, it's not finished. It needs clarification. Didn't have 24 hours in print, and so this is the example that I'm going to quote. The bill redefines the term consistently fails to merely mean a failure. So what if a system fails momentarily or shuts down for 1 day or 1 hour? These powers are far too broad for a brand new group of people to enforce in a way that's fair, and we haven't had time for all of the water experts to weigh in and help us fix it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fuller. All debate having ceased, Senator Leno, you may close.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to be very sensitive and respectful to all of the concerns that have been issued here. Many of them were expressed in our committee hearing yesterday. And I think part of the problem here is the lack of time, the lack of process. So I, again, would suggest to the administration, you can buy a lot of goodwill and a lot of potential faith in what's being presented if we did have more time. But I do want to express why I'm confident that this is worthy of a vote. And if you turn to page 11 of this trailer bill, you'll see there is a long list of conditions that must be met before the Water Board will intervene, before there will be any beginning of a process of consolidation. LAFCO is not taken from us. It is in place. The Water Board is enjoined from acting if a LAFCO consolidation proceeding is pending. So if LAFCO is doing its job, state will not come in. It will not intervene. If it is not, and these other conditions are met, that's when the state will come in. All reasonable efforts to negotiate a consolidation or extension have first to be attempted. The consolidation, that there's no pending local agency formation commission process, that concerns regarding water rights and water contracts have been adequately addressed. Consolidation is the most effective and cost-effective means to provide an adequate supply of safe drinking water. All of these standards must be met prior to the state coming in. So again, when the dust settles, I think that we'll feel much better about this. I think a lot of the stakeholders will feel a lot better about it as well, that it is a circumstance that I think will be used rarely. And also, with regard to any concern for unfunded mandate, I don't believe that's the case either, that the receiving agency will have all of its infrastructure costs paid for by bond money, and that they are also indemnified regarding any liabilities they may inherit when there is a consolidation. So safeguards are in place. Again, I completely understand that there is suspicion, but I think the more you digest what is in the bill, the more you can realize that this is a thoughtful process and that it will, again, let's refocus, as with regard to the folks in Porterville and others who are suffering throughout the state, that LAFCO has not come to the rescue and that there needs to be some greater opportunity when all else has failed. When all else has failed, that's when this would take effect. I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen? Aye. Anderson? No. Bates? No. Bell? Aye. Berryhill? No. Block? Aye. Cannella? No. De Leon? Aye. Fuller? No. Gaines? No. Galgiani? Glazer? Hall? Aye. Hancock? Aye. Hernandez? Aye. Hertzberg? Aye. Hill? Aye. Hueso? Aye. Huff? No. Jackson? Aye. Latta? Aye. Leno? Aye. Leva? Aye. Liu? Aye. McGuire? Aye. Mendoza? Mitchell? Monning? Aye. Morlock? No. Morrell? No. Wynn? No. Nielsen? No. Pan? Aye. Pavley? Aye. Roth? Aye. Runner? No. Stone? Vidak? No. Wachowski? Aye. Wolk?
Please
aye.
call the absent members.
Galgiani? Glazer? Aye. Mendoza? Mitchell? Aye. Stone? No.
Ayes 24, noes 14. The measure Assembly amendments are concurred in. We will now go to file item, without reference to file, SB 81. Colleagues, I've been asked to inform you the Assembly has completed its work. They are shut down, and we have 7 more items, one of which will be fairly controversial, so if we can move it along, it would be appreciated.